What if I told you that beneath the shimmering waves of the Indian Ocean, there lies a submerged city that just might be a legendary kingdom mentioned in an ancient epic? Yes, we're going on a deep dive into the story of Dwarka, a city described in the Mahabharata, one of the major Sanskrit epics of ancient India. This isn't just an exploration of myth and legend, but also a journey through the fascinating realms of underwater archaeology and radiocarbon dating. So let's plunge into the depths and discover the captivating saga of Dwarka. Dwarka is more than just a name. It's a word that translates to the gateway to heaven. According to Hindu mythology, this majestic city was established by none other than Lord Krishna, a deity worshipped as the 8th avatar of Lord Vishnu. Now, who is Krishna, you might ask? Krishna, a central figure in Hinduism, is widely revered for his wisdom, his strategic prowess, his supernatural feats, and his role as a charioteer, advisor, and friend to Prince Arjuna in the epic Mahabharata. In this ancient text, Krishna flees to the western coast of India after a catastrophic war. Here he establishes the city of Dwarka, a city so opulent and grand that it's often described as a city made of gold. But as stories go, this magnificent city meets a tragic end. After Krishna's death, a series of calamities strike. Submerged by the sea in a matter of days, the city disappears, taking all its architectural grandeur and wealth along with it. The tale of Dwarka is fascinating in its own right, but here's where it gets even more interesting. This myth aligns with a geological phenomenon known as sea level rise, which could result in the submergence of coastal settlements. So this begs the question, is Dwarka just a symbolic tale, or could it be an actual historical event dressed in myth and legend? The archaeology unit of the National Institute of Oceanography is making headlines. The team is embarking on an underwater archaeological expedition to see what lies beneath the sea at Dwarka, on the western coast of India. Led by archaeologists S.R. Rao and S. Gaur, the team discovers something that shakes up the world of archaeology: structural remains and artifacts suggesting the existence of an ancient city. The expedition reveals well-planned stone structures, pottery shards, semi-precious stones, and inscriptions, some of which date back to the Harappan civilization around 2000 BCE. The discoveries don't stop there. Subsequent underwater explorations reveal an extensive network of stone structures, extending over half a mile, which appears to have been built on the bank of an ancient river, the Gomati. The stone structures, ceramics, and inscriptions lend credibility to the existence of a bustling urban center in antiquity. It's an intriguing find, right? But there's a twist. The artifacts and structures found underwater not only suggest the existence of an ancient city, but also hint at a city that may have been submerged by rising sea levels, aligning strikingly with the legend of Dwarka. Could it be that the legend of Dwarka was not merely a legend, but a page out of our own historical past preserved in mythology? So we have established that there's something under the sea at Dwarka, but what exactly did the explorers find? Well, the discoveries at Dwarka were nothing short of astonishing. Firstly, pottery shards were found in abundance. These pieces of ancient ceramics were from a variety of different eras, some of them dating back to the late Harappan period. The variety in pottery styles suggests that Dwarka was inhabited over an extensive period of time, housing several generations of people. Then there were the semi-precious stones. These materials, often used for making jewelry, speak volumes about the economic prosperity of the city. The presence of such materials suggests that Dwarka was a trade center, exchanging goods with different parts of the ancient world. Next, there were the inscriptions. The most important of these was a seal that bore the image of a three-headed animal. The symbolism behind this creature remains a mystery, but the very fact that the inhabitants of Dwarka had a complex system of symbols suggests a sophisticated society. And then, of course, there were the architectural remains. Stone structures of various shapes and sizes were found, giving archaeologists a glimpse into the layout of the city. Among these structures, a series of circular fort-like constructions, believed to be part of the city's defense system, were particularly remarkable. Taken together, these discoveries form a remarkable narrative of an ancient city that was, in its time, a hub of civilization and commerce. And this narrative, much to our astonishment, aligns remarkably well with the mythical city of Dwarka described in the Mahabharata. In a world where we want hard facts, the science of radiocarbon dating can act as our time machine, providing an objective lens through which to view the past. And it was this scientific tool that was used to try and pinpoint the age of the submerged city of Dwarka. Radiocarbon dating works by estimating the age of organic materials, which include ancient artifacts and biological specimens. It's based on the principle that all living things contain carbon, some of which is radioactive C14. When a creature or plant dies, it stops absorbing this radioactive carbon, but the C14 it already contains continues to decay. By measuring the remaining quantity of C14, scientists can estimate how long ago the organism died, or in our case, when the artifacts were last used or made. Applying this technique, pieces of wood from Dwarka were sent to laboratories where they were analyzed for radiocarbon content. The results: the wood samples were found to date back to around 7,500 years ago, vastly predating the expected timeline of Mahabharata, according to most historians. This significant revelation opened up a Pandora's box of questions. Could the submerged city really be the mythical Dwarka? If so, does it mean that our timeline of the Mahabharata is off? Or does it suggest that the city was inhabited long before Krishna supposedly ruled there, and the epic merely borrowed the location's rich history? The radiocarbon dating results were a fascinating discovery, adding a new layer of complexity to the mystery of Dwarka. It reminds us that the lines between history, archaeology, and mythology can blur, leaving us to ponder on the intersection of fact and fiction. How does radiocarbon dating work? Let's step back from the Dwarka and elaborate a little more on this interesting way to measure age. Alright, so imagine you're watching a video on YouTube. When the video starts, it's fully loaded, right? Now let's say you pause the video and go grab a snack. When you come back, you notice that the video has unloaded a bit. It's been buffering and you can't play it right away. That's a bit like how radiocarbon dating works. But instead of a video, we're talking about a kind of stuff called carbon-14. You see, everything that was once alive, like a tree, a dinosaur, or a woolly mammoth, absorbed a type of carbon called carbon-14 when they were living. Once they die, they stop taking in new carbon-14. But here's the cool part. Carbon-14 is a little bit like a slowly buffering YouTube video. Over time, it changes or decays into another kind of stuff called nitrogen-14. Scientists call the time it takes for half of the carbon-14 to change into nitrogen-14 its half-life. Kind of like if half your video had to buffer before you could watch it. For carbon-14, this half-life is about 5,730 years. Now let's say we find a really old piece of wood and we want to know when the tree it came from stopped living. We can't ask the tree, obviously, but we can use a special tool to measure how much carbon-14 is still in the wood compared to how much carbon-12, a type of carbon that doesn't change over time, is in it. If there's a lot of carbon-14 left, the tree probably hasn't been dead very long, but if there's only a little carbon-14 left, that means the tree has been dead for a very long time, and that's pretty much how radiocarbon dating works. Scientists use this method to tell how old things are that used to be alive, from ancient wooden tools to prehistoric animal bones. It's like a time machine that helps us uncover the secrets of the past. The discussion surrounding the ancient city of Dwarka isn't without its skeptics. These are the people who question the conclusions that have been drawn from the archaeological evidence, and their doubts are an important part of the scientific process. One of the main areas of skepticism revolves around the age of the underwater city. Critics point out that while certain samples tested using radiocarbon dating suggest an older date, this doesn't necessarily confirm that the city itself is of the same age. In other words, older organic material could have been incorporated into a younger settlement. Skeptics also point to the complexity and size of the structures that have been found underwater. They argue that these structures are far more sophisticated than what is typically associated with other sites from the same period. Some even suggest that the underwater ruins could be the remnants of a much more recent settlement, potentially even dating to medieval times. Then there's the question of the city's connection to the ancient epic, the Mahabharata. Skeptics argue that just because a city is found where the mythical Dwarka is said to have been, doesn't mean it's the same city. After all, there could have been multiple settlements in the area over the thousands of years of human history. Finally, skeptics argue that more research needs to be done. The underwater site is extensive, and only a small portion has been thoroughly investigated. Until more of the city is explored and more artifacts are found and tested, skeptics caution against drawing firm conclusions about the site's age and cultural significance. But where does that leave us? A submerged city, radiocarbon dates that point to immense antiquity, and a saga that may or may not be the echoes of a distant past. The quest for understanding Dwarka is a testament to the human spirit's insatiable curiosity, bridging the gap between myth and science. So the next time you gaze at the vast expanse of the ocean, remember that beneath its surface may lie stories waiting to be discovered. Did you know that beneath the swirling waters of the Mediterranean lies a city that was once the grandest port of the ancient world, its splendor now hidden beneath the waves? Today, we're diving deep into the mysterious and captivating world of Thonis Heracleion, Egypt's sunken city. Through its rise and fall, from being an emblem of prosperity to a submerged testament of time, Thonis Heracleion whispers tales that challenge our understanding of history, culture, and human achievement. So let's embark on this journey where we'll not only unmask the past, but also explore how the future of archaeological exploration is set to unfold. Today we're diving deep into the story of Thonis Heracleion, a city that once stood proud but now resides beneath the waves. But what if I told you that this submerged city was once one of the grandest in the world? Yes, let's rewind back a few millennia to the days when Thonis Heracleion was at its peak. In the time of its glory, around the 8th to the 2nd century BCE, Thonis Heracleion wasn't just a city. It was one of Egypt's most important commercial hubs and port of entry for trade with the Mediterranean. This wasn't just a backwater outpost, it was a bustling, vibrant city filled with grand temples, trading posts and residential areas. Picture this: giant statues of pharaohs and gods adorning the public spaces, stately stone steles inscribed with royal decrees, vessels filled with goods from Greece and beyond arriving at the city's harbor, priests performing religious rituals at grand temples like the one dedicated to the god Amun-Gereb, the supreme god of the Egyptians at the time. In many ways, Thonis Heracleion was a microcosm of the ancient world's interconnectivity. The city's strategic position near the mouth of the Nile made it a key trading hub between the Mediterranean and the Nile Delta. This wasn't just a place where goods were exchanged, it was a place where cultures, ideas, and traditions intermingled. But it wasn't just about trade. Thonis Heracleion also had a spiritual significance. According to Herodotus, the city was where the hero Heracles first set foot on Egypt, and where Helen of Troy and her lover Paris sought refuge. This added a layer of myth and legend to the city's bustling trade and vibrant life. And while this paints a vivid picture of a thriving city, all this grandeur, all these tales and legends, all these monuments to human achievement would eventually sink beneath the waves. But what happened? Why did such a vital city disappear from history only to be discovered underwater centuries later? But how does a city go from being one of the most influential in the ancient world to resting beneath the sea? Well, as they say, nothing lasts forever. When Thonis Heracleion fell, it was quite literally, but why? What caused this great city to disappear into the depths of the Mediterranean? The answer, as is often the case, lies in a combination of natural and human-induced factors. Researchers believe that the city's downfall was mainly due to geological and climatic changes. Thonis Heracleion was built on the Nile Delta's unstable sediments, which are vulnerable to liquefaction. This process turns seemingly solid ground into a flowing liquid state, a bit like quicksand. Now imagine large buildings, statues, and a growing population pressing down on this land. Meanwhile, the sea level was rising. Not rapidly, but consistently year after year. The combined weight and geological instability were ticking time bombs. Now, add to this some catastrophic natural events. It's believed that a series of earth tremors and tsunamis hit the region around the time of Thonis Heracleion's decline. Gradually, over decades or perhaps a few short centuries, the city began sinking into the sea, buildings collapsed, streets flooded, and, bit by bit, Thonis Heracleion was claimed by the Mediterranean. But here's the twist: while the city was slowly sinking, people didn't just abandon it. The inhabitants tried to adapt, to build over the sinking ruins to keep their city alive. But ultimately, nature had the final say. By the end of the 2nd century BCE, most of Thonis Heracleion had sunk beneath the sea. Alexandria, another city founded by Alexander the Great, took over as Egypt's premier port, and Thonis Heracleion gradually faded from collective memory. It wasn't until the beginning of the 21st century that the submerged city was rediscovered and brought back into the limelight, a tale we will explore in our next segment. It's easy to forget, but our past is always beneath our feet and sometimes beneath the waves. The city of Thonis Heracleion disappeared from our collective memory until the turn of the 21st century, when our narrative takes an exciting turn. We transition from history to a more modern tale of adventure and rediscovery, similar to an Indiana Jones movie but underwater. Enter French underwater archaeologist Frank Gaudiot. In 2000, Gaudiot, supported by his team from the European Institute for Underwater Archaeology, embarked on an expedition to unravel a mystery that had remained unsolved for centuries. Armed with ancient texts and cutting-edge technology, Gaudiot searched the seabed of Aboukir Bay off the coast of Egypt. What he discovered was beyond anyone's wildest dreams. Over the course of many years, his team methodically uncovered the remnants of Thonis Heracleion. Giant statues, gold coins, stelae inscribed with ancient Greek and Egyptian scripts, pottery, jewelry, and even shipwrecks emerged from the silt-covered seabed. But perhaps the most significant find was a huge stone slab known as the Decree of Sais, which helped to confirm beyond doubt that this was indeed the lost city of Thonis Heracleion. But imagine the difficulty of this task. Imagine being an archaeologist, but your work site is under several meters of water, and your historical treasures are buried under centuries of silt and sediment. It's a painstaking process, moving centimeter by centimeter, careful not to destroy the fragile relics of the past. Every object brought to the surface was meticulously documented and conserved. Many of these artifacts are now exhibited in museums around the world, providing us with a tangible connection to this lost city and its intriguing past. It's incredible to think that a city once so vibrant and influential could be forgotten, only to be rediscovered millennia later. Now let's venture a little deeper into the world of underwater archaeology, which plays a crucial role in unlocking the mysteries of submerged cities like Thonis Heracleion. This is no easy task, mind you. In fact, the challenges of underwater archaeology are as deep and complex as the oceans themselves. Firstly, we have the obstacle of depth. The deeper an archaeological site, the greater the pressure, the colder the temperature, and the darker it gets. These harsh conditions limit the amount of time divers can spend underwater and impair their ability to see and move, thus complicating excavation efforts. Then there's the issue of sediment. Over centuries, sunken cities become buried under layers of sand and silt, obscuring them from view. Unlike digging on land, removing sediment underwater creates clouds of debris that reduce visibility and can potentially damage delicate artifacts. Furthermore, marine archaeology demands a comprehensive and interdisciplinary approach, combining the principles of archaeology, oceanography, marine biology, and engineering, among others. Excavation techniques must also be adapted to handle artifacts that have been immersed in water for centuries, as these objects can be extremely fragile and can disintegrate if not handled with extreme care. Equipment and technology pose another challenge. Underwater archaeology relies heavily on advanced tools such as remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, sonar mapping systems, and specialized diving equipment. But these technologies are expensive and require specialized training to operate. Lastly, we can't ignore the conservation challenge. Once artifacts are brought to the surface, they must undergo extensive and often costly conservation work to prevent them from degrading in the air. This involves removing salts and other corrosive agents, carefully drying the artifacts and preserving them for further study and display. But why do we go to such lengths? Because every challenge overcome, every artifact unearthed is another piece in the jigsaw puzzle of our past. And as we've seen with the discovery and ongoing exploration of Thonis Heracleion, the results can be astonishing, opening up new windows into ancient civilizations and their untold stories. In the end, despite all the hardships and complexities, the quest to unravel the mysteries hidden beneath the waves continues. Because just as Michelangelo once said, "I saw the angel in the marble and carved until I set him free," underwater archaeologists see the whispers of history in the deep blue and dive until they set them free. As we delve into the future of Thonis Heracleion, we find ourselves face to face with a combination of excitement, anticipation, and concern. Yes, the journey of discovery isn't over yet. In fact, one might say it has just begun. The current body of knowledge we have about Thonis Heraclean is like a puzzle with many missing pieces. Each dive, each excavation, promises the potential discovery of new artifacts that could help us form a more complete picture of this ancient city. However, the future isn't just about uncovering what lies beneath. New technologies like virtual reality, augmented reality, and 3D modeling can play a significant role in bringing the story of Thonis Heraclean to a broader audience. Imagine strapping on a virtual reality headset and walking through the ancient streets of Thonis Heraclean, seeing the buildings, the artifacts, and the people as they were thousands of years ago. Isn't that mind-boggling? Yet, while we dream of digital recreations and archaeological revelations, there is an urgent concern that looms large: the threat of climate change. Rising sea levels, warming oceans, and extreme weather events pose serious risks to underwater archaeological sites. These impacts can accelerate the degradation of artifacts and structures, and even make some sites inaccessible for study. This urgency further underlines the need for continued exploration and preservation efforts. There's an ongoing debate about whether we should leave artifacts in situ, preserving them underwater, or bring them to the surface for study and conservation. As technology advances, we might be able to do both: explore and conserve the site underwater while also digitally documenting and replicating the finds for study and display. And there you have it. From the glories of its heyday to the mysteries shrouding its decline, the story of Thonis Heraclean is indeed a fascinating saga. Its rediscovery not only gives us a glimpse into an era long gone, but also presents us with opportunities to revolutionize how we perceive and preserve our past. As we look towards the future, it's clear that the tale of Thonis Heraclean is far from over. With advancing technology and undying human curiosity, we stand at the brink of even more groundbreaking discoveries. So, as we bid adieu to the sunken city of Thonis Heraclean for now, remember, our journey into the depths of history has just begun, and as always, thanks for watching.